Flight attendant humiliates black woman. Her 8-year-old son turns the plane into a courtroom. When a flight attendant insulted his mom mid-air, no one expected an 8-year-old boy to shut her down like a lawyer in court. But what he said had the whole cabin stunned down, the airline scrambling for an apology. Hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready because this flight took a turn no one saw coming. It was supposed to be a routine flight from Dallas to New York in mid-morning. Journey filled with business travelers, vacationers, and tired families. But for Monica Green, a 32-year-old black single mother traveling with her 8-year-old son Jordan, this flight would turn into something unforgettable. Monica had worked 2 jobs to afford this trip. She wanted to take her son to the American Museum of Natural History. He loved dinosaurs, planets, and anything that made his curious little mind spin. It was their first trip together in 2 years. She saved up for business class seats not because she wanted luxury, but because Jordan had mild sensory issues and sometimes needed space. She wanted him to be comfortable, to feel special, just once. They boarded early, Jordan clutching a small backpack shaped like a cartoon astronaut. He grinned ear to ear as he took his window seat, his mother beside him, placing her purse gently under the seat. Everything was smooth until a tall, sharply dressed white flight attendant named Cassandra approached them. Her tone was clipped from the start. "Ma'am, I believe you're in the wrong section. These seats are for business class passengers." Monica smiled politely, handing over her boarding passes. "Yes, that's us. Seats for A and for B." Cassandra barely looked. "I'm sorry, but I've seen this too many times. Economy is in the back. I'll give you a moment to collect your things." Jordan looked confused. "Mommy, are we getting off?" Monica's heart sank. "No, baby, we're not. We're in the right seats." The flight attendant leaned down, lowering her voice just enough to sound threatening but loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I don't know how you got these tickets, but if you don't move, I'll have to involve the captain." The words hung in the air like smoke. Passengers turned, phones were pulled out, whispers began. Monica remained calm. "Please check again. These are our seats, you can scan them." But Cassandra wouldn't budge. She rolled her eyes and radioed another crew member. Monica sat frozen in humiliation, her son watching her wide-eyed. She knew what this was. It wasn't about the seat. It was about who was sitting in it. A male attendant finally came over, scanned the passes, and awkwardly confirmed they're in the correct seats. No apology, no eye contact. Cassandra huffed and walked away, leaving a cloud of embarrassment behind. But it wasn't over. Not for Jordan. He blinked at his mum, then slowly zipped open his backpack. Inside was a spiral notebook. He began writing furiously, silently, for the rest of the flight. No one knew it yet, but Jordan, this quiet, thoughtful 80-year-old, was preparing something no one on that plane would forget. Not even the flight attendant. As the flight leveled off above the clouds, Jordan's little hands worked non-stop, page after page in his spiral notebook filled with neat handwriting and crayon drawings. He didn't cry. He didn't fidget. He didn't even speak. But his face, usually bright and bouncy, had turned focused and still. Monica, still shaken, tried to regain her composure. She stared out the window, blinking back tears, pretending not to notice the subtle glances from other passengers or the lack of basic courtesy from the crew. She didn't want to make a scene. Black women like her knew what happened when they did. "Baby, you okay?" she whispered. Jordan nodded. "I'm okay, Mummy. I'm just making something." Monica kissed the top of his head and let him be. 2 rows back, a middle-aged white man in a business suit who had witnessed the incident leaned forward. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I saw what happened. That was wrong. If you need me to say something, I will." Monica gave him a weak smile. "Thank you. We're just going to get through this flight." But Jordan had already made his decision. He wasn't just going to get through it. He was going to respond. He flipped to a clean page and wrote, in large letters, "Court is now in session. The people versus the rude flight attendant." Beneath it, he began sketching stick figures. One was labeled "Mommy," another "Me." Then one tall, sharp figure, "Flight Lady Mean." He wrote dialogue bubbles. He documented everything that happened, every word, every gesture. Then he created a jury with stick passengers, some with shocked faces, some frowning. He even gave the man in the suit a speech bubble. That was wrong. It wasn't just a drawing. It was a testimony, and he wasn't finished. He flipped to the next page and titled it, "Evidence of Disrespect." He listed what had been said, how his mom looked, how the people around reacted. Then, on the final page, he wrote, "Final words from the child. When you hurt someone because of how they look, you show who you are, not who they are." By the time the captain announced descent, Jordan had torn out the pages and folded them neatly. Monica was gathering their things when Jordan tugged her sleeve. "Mommy," he said, "I'm going to read something before we leave the plane." Monica blinked. "What do you mean, read something?" Jordan's eyes were firm. "I'm not going to yell. I'm going to speak. Like in court." Just for a minute, Monica froze. "Baby, maybe it's better if..." But before she could finish, Jordan, we had already stood up. His small frame climbed onto the seat cushion and turned to face the cabin. He cleared his throat, and the cabin went quiet. The seatbelt sign had just turned off. Passengers were grabbing bags, checking phones, impatient to get off the plane. But when Jordan Green, age 8, stood on his seat with a folded paper in hand and said, loudly, "Excuse me, everyone, I have something to say," the cabin froze. People turned. Some looked annoyed, others curious. Monica reached for her son's hand, but he gently pulled away. "I'm not yelling," he whispered. "I'm just telling the truth." Then Jordan unfolded his notebook pages with trembling hands and began to speak like a lawyer. "This is called The People versus the Rude Flight Attendant, and it's about what happened to me and my mom when we got on this plane." The words hit like thunder. Passengers smirked. A few chuckled. But no one interrupted. Jordan continued, his voice surprisingly steady. "We sat in our seats number 4A and 4B. But the lady in the uniform told us we didn't belong here. She didn't check our tickets. She didn't smile. She just told my mom to move, and she talked like we were lying. Like we did something wrong." Monica's eyes welled up. The man in the suit folded his arms, nodding. Two teens nearby put down their phones and watched. "My mom works hard. She bought these tickets to surprise me. I'm 8 years old. I love school. I love books. And I know what respect is, and that wasn't it." He lifted another page titled Evidence and read, "Evidence of disrespect. Didn't check our tickets. Talked down to my mom. Threatened to call the captain. Didn't say sorry even after she was wrong by now." Even the flight attendants were frozen. Cassandra, standing at the front with her arms folded, looked like her soul had left her body. Her mouth twitched, but she said nothing. Jordan went on, "I wrote this because I didn't want to cry. So I made it like a courtroom, where truth matters. Where people have to listen." He held up the last page. Final words from the child. "When you hurt someone because of how they look, you show who you are, not who they are." Silence. Then dash clap clap clap. Applause. First from the man in the suit, then the teens, then half the plane. Even a woman with a baby stood and clapped with one hand. Cassandra looked like she might melt into the floor. Jordan bowed slightly adorably and sat down. "Did I do okay?" he whispered. Monica pulled him into her arms. "You did more than okay, baby," she said through tears. "You told the truth, but this story wasn't just going to stay on that plane." Because what Jordan didn't know yet was that someone had filmed it all. The plane rolled to a stop at the gate, but something else had already taken flight. While Jordan delivered his heartfelt speech, a woman 2 rows behind him, Amara, a 24-year-old law student, had been recording the entire thing on her phone. She hadn't planned to. But the moment that small boy stood up and calmly declared court is now in session, her instincts kicked in. And now, standing in the terminal with tears still on her cheeks, she uploaded the video to X, formerly Twitter, with the caption, "This 8-year-old just turned an entire airplane into a courtroom after his mom was racially profiled by a flight attendant. Watch this." Within an hour, the video had over 200,000 views. By the time Monica and Jordan reached baggage claim, it had hit 1.5 million, and it wasn't stopping. Celebrities reposted it. Activists shared it. Civil rights lawyers started tagging the airline. Jordan's tiny voice, calm, composed, and deeply honest, was playing across screens from New York to Nigeria. Monica's phone began buzzing non-stop. Unknown numbers, journalists, news outlets, even her former college professor messaged her, saying, "That's your son. I just watched it on CNN." Meanwhile, at the airline's corporate office, the pressure exploded. The footage was undeniable. Clear audio, clear disrespect, clear dignity from the child. PR teams scrambled to prepare statements. Executives held emergency Zoom calls, and Cassandra, the flight attendant, was pulled off active duty pending investigation. But the world wasn't waiting for apologies. People weren't just talking about one incident, they were talking about every time someone like Monica was judged, dismissed, or silenced. Jordan had unknowingly opened a national conversation. Even kids were reacting. Teachers were showing the clip in classrooms. One third-grade class in Atlanta held a mock trial inspired by Jordan. "He's braver than most adults I know," one teacher tweeted. At home that evening, Monica turned to her son, now sitting cross-legged on the couch watching cartoons. "Jordan, do you understand what's happening?" He shrugged. A little. She smiled. "You stood up for me. You stood up for something right. I'm so proud of you." Jordan looked up. "Does that mean we won?" Monica paused. "No, baby. We didn't just win. We changed something." But the biggest surprise was still ahead, because the airline was about to call, and this time they weren't calling to accuse, they were calling to apologize. 2 days after landing in New York, Monica sat at her kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee, her phone buzzing constantly. The video had now hit 27 million views and was featured on Good Morning America, BBC News, and Al Jazeera. The hashtag Jordan the Judge was trending worldwide. Offers were pouring in. Talk shows, kids' book publishers, scholarships. Even a civil rights museum wanted to create a small exhibit titled One Small Voice at 30,000 feet. But that morning, the call came from someone unexpected. "Hello, this is Diane Wilkins. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Skia." "Monica, for a sec, we'd like to apologize directly and publicly for how you and your son were treated." Monica stayed silent, listening. We've reviewed the footage, spoken with the crew, and we're not just sorry we're acting. The flight attendant in question has been placed on unpaid suspension pending diversity retraining, and we'd like to offer you and Jordan lifetime flight benefits for both domestic and international travel. Monica exhaled slowly. That's a start. But what about something bigger? Bigger, yes, Monica replied. How about you name your new internal staff training after him, the Jordan Protocol, so no other mother has to go through what I did? There was a long pause on the line. You know what? That's brilliant. Later that evening, Monica sat Jordan down again. He was playing with his action figures, still unaware of how large his voice had become. Sweetheart, she said softly, the airline called. They're sorry. And they want to name a new training program after you, to help teach people to do better. Jordan blinked. Really? Yes, really. And they want to know if you'd like to say something for the press, for everyone watching. Jordan looked thoughtful. Then he grabbed his notebook again. He flipped to a new page and began writing. After a few minutes, he handed it to Monica. She smiled, tears forming in her eyes as she read aloud. My name is Jordan. I'm 8. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not famous. I just didn't like how someone treated my mom. If you see something unfair, speak up. You don't have to be big to do big things, because sometimes the courtroom isn't in a building. Sometimes it's on a plane. A month later, Sky Air announced the Jordan Protocol as a core part of their employee re-education. And Jordan, he stood in front of his school auditorium, in a clean blazer and sneakers, reading his speech to thunderous applause. No judge, no jury, just truth. A truth that began with a notebook and ended by changing the skies. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's make sure every Jordan out there knows your voice matters, even at 30,000 feet.